One of the resolutions that I set for this year was to become a reader again. I was definitely a reading kid in middle school. I was devouring Harry Potter, Percy Jackson, The Hunger Games. Reading was for sure one of my personality traits. It was something I would do at the dinner table. It was something I would do when people were trying to talk to me and I was just face in the fucking book. I really missed her, and I think a lot of people who grew up as readers experienced this just sort of abrupt stop to their reading habits. I definitely blame my phone for quite a bit of it, but at the end of the day, I'm the one in charge of myself. Excuses can be made, but I ultimately am in charge of my destiny. So at the beginning of this year, I set out to become a reader again, and it's not like I hadn't been trying, okay? I'd been sort of intermittently reading personal development books throughout the last several years, but certainly not enough or with enough excitement to really call myself a reader. I got a lot of value from all of that nonfiction, but to me, being a reader was really like curling up with a good fiction book and getting absorbed in it, and I just didn't get that effect from the nonfiction I was reading. It often felt more like a bit of a chore, and I wanted to recreate kind of the magic that I used to experience around reading. So I tried to dip my toe back into fiction, and I kind of started with a lot of those really popular TikTok books, and it sucked. I think it was last year that I read these like kind of trendier books, a lot of romances, a lot of more like contemporary fiction. I don't know, I think the books that I was reading, they were just heavy in a way that I didn't enjoy. Personally, that's just not what I want reading to be for me. I like reading to be just like a fun, frivolous activity where I can get absorbed in a world that feels entirely different from my own. This year, I feel like I've really, truly become a reader again, and I want to share just some of the little tips and strategies that I feel like helped me get to that point where I now identify with being a reader again. I love reading again, and it's one of my most prominent hobbies, which it used to be, and I'm so glad to be back to that point. So if you also kind of experienced a death to your reading habits and you're really struggling to get back into it, especially in the age of phones and limited attention spans, this age of like it being very difficult to sit down and read a fucking book, I hope this video helps you out a little bit. I know we are all back into the reading vibes. It's being very romanticized, and I think that's amazing. Love the like new drive of people wanting to become readers. So I hope that this can help you if you are also on that little journey, or just give you a little reading motivation. Okay, first things first, and I'm gonna go get the book that I'm currently reading to illustrate this point. This is the book that I'm currently reading. She's a thick one. You guys probably have heard of this series, A Court of Thorns and Roses. I'm on the final book, I think. At least the final book that's been released, I'm pretty sure. Me, a year ago, looking at this, I would have been like a little bit intimidated, even though I used to read shit this thick all the time. But now I'm like, thank fucking God it's this long. The reason I pull this up, this is a fantasy book, okay? Fantasy is what I used to love to read when I was growing up. Reading fantasy is not exactly the most respected form of reading. It's a little geeky, you could say. I don't think it's a little geeky, but like from the public perception, it's not exactly winning me cool points to be a fantasy reader, okay? It is in my mind, but maybe not in the mind of the general public. All of that is to say, when I tried to get back into reading and I was picking up these trendy books in these like contemporary genres, if I could go back, I would just like shake myself a little bit and be like, read what you want to read. Be honest with yourself about what genres and what types of books really light you up. And for me, it's not necessarily the nonfiction personal development books, though I love personal development. It's not necessarily even the contemporary romances or the TikTok books. It's shit like this with like fairies and magic and spice too, because that's the thing that's changed in my adult reading sensibilities, is I like a little steam to my books now. Basically what I'm saying here is there's nothing wrong with whatever genre you are feeling called to read. If you want to read super cheesy kind of crappy romances, do that. If you want to read fantasy, do that. Whatever lights that little fire in you, it doesn't matter if it's generally seen as good or respectable. Be honest with yourself. What makes you excited? What makes you bright-eyed and bushy-tailed? And kind of going off of that, get back in touch with what you liked when you were younger. My taste in books, yeah, has matured obviously with me, but at the same time, a lot of the things that really excited and hooked me when I was younger still hook me to books to this day. What made me a reader in the first place was discovering this like category of books, so I'm gonna keep looking with within that category of books. And now I can kind of look at the adult fantasy books. But if you were a reader and you fell off of it, getting back in touch with what made you a reader in the first place and what you truly loved during that time is the easiest and best way to get back into it. You already have that information about your taste, right? So instead of like trying to tread into the water of reading again with like random recommendations or just like books that you see online, get back to your roots a little bit. Maybe find something within the genres you used to love, pick up an old series that you were obsessed with. You want to get your foot in the door of reading again, and that's just not going to happen if you try to dive back into it and read like a whole slew of disappointing books that you hate. It's going to be really discouraging and you're going to be like, what's up with this? Like, I'm not going to keep going if I'm hating all the books I'm reading. Start with something that's maybe a little more safe and maybe that gets you back in touch with that younger version of you that loved to read. Okay, the next thing that I think really helped me get back into reading and that I think can really help you get back into reading is just a mindset shift that leisure is productive. Reading is a productive thing to be doing. Your hobbies deserve time as much as your work, your significant other, your social life. Reading is really self-care. It's a way for you to pour into yourself and just give yourself some me time, as well as exercising your brain and like becoming more intelligent, even if you're reading this. This was a huge shift that I had to make and I'm still working on making, because I have talked before about how I would feel guilty for reading because my brain was so hardwired to be focused on traditional productivity, on always feeling like I had to be working and grinding or, you know, pouring into my relationships, and things that were strictly self-care or leisure or hobbies really fell to the back burner and didn't feel like valuable enough uses of my time. And I had to confront myself and realize just how ridiculous that mindset and that outlook on reading was, because it's not like every single second of my time is spent amazingly, is spent on really important, earth-shattering things. In fact, I spend quite a bit of time on this little device here, and if I can replace some of that screen time with reading, it's such a more high quality form of leisure than just like mindless scrolling or looking at a small screen. Not every single second of your day has to be spent on a traditionally productive task. Self-care and pouring into yourself and just enjoying things that you used to love and can love again is an equally valid use of your time. Next little tip that has helped me to really become a reader again is habit batching. If you're not familiar with habit batching, it basically is when you link two habits together. So you're linking a habit that already exists in your day-to-day routine with a new habit that you want to implement. So for example, let's say you wanted to call your mom more. You could habit batch that with eating breakfast. So every day while I'm eating breakfast, I'm going to call my mom. That's the principle of it. Reading wise, this could either be linking reading with a specific time of day or with a specific activity that you do. So for me personally, my favorite way to implement this is reading right before bed. It gives you a specific time and place where you're going to read in your bed right before you sleep. It also is great because it helps you to wind down for bed a lot better than being on a screen. It helps you to relax more, and then when you get tired, you can just close your little book. Plus, if you are struggling with kind of the guilt for taking the time to read instead of doing something more productive, doing it before bed also helps with that, because it's like, okay, there's realistically nothing else I would really be filling this time with of value. If you weren't reading, you'd probably just be on your phone, so might as well read before bed. You've already had a full and productive day. Sometimes I'll also be like, okay, I'm going to a coffee shop specifically to read. Maybe I won't bring my laptop with me. It'll just be me and the book, and the whole intention for the trip to the coffee shop is reading. So that can be really nice too, because then you're at a specific location with the intention to read, and for the duration of time that you're there, you're focused on that activity. And it keeps it contained too, so you don't end up falling into too much of a reading spiral and maybe neglecting other things that you need to be doing, which sometimes can happen if you're in the midst of a very good book. But that's another way that I really like to use the habit batching trick. But this could be anything. It could be reading as soon as you wake up, reading while you're eating lunch, anything that you want to connect reading to, a specific time of day, another thing that you're already doing in your routine. Kind of going off of that with like setting specific parameters around reading. Something that I want to kind of test out that I haven't tried, but I think it could be useful, is setting a specific number of chapters or pages that you want to set out to read. I feel like this could be very useful, especially if you're really struggling to get back into it and it still kind of feels like a chore, you aren't really hooked on a book yet. That's where I think that this little tip or strategy could really help you. Just sit down with the intention to read like a single chapter. If you get into it and you want to read more, you can, but at least commit to a certain duration that you're going to read. Knowing that you're only going to sit down and read a chapter and it's a small commitment can kind of help you get over that little barrier to entry. Another thing that I think could be really helpful is to make it social. Talk about reading with your friends, whether that's recommending books to friends. I recommended this series to a friend and she's actually like loving it and reading it. And we got to talk about it and like gush about the story and the characters. And that was so much freaking fun. And I was shocked that she actually picked up the book, but reading can become a social thing. You can discuss it with your friends. You can give each other recommendations or even just talk to people about the fact that you're a reader, that you like reading. Saying those things out loud and kind of making it into a little bit of a part of your identity can really help you to feel like, okay, this is something that I'm doing now. This is a hobby of mine. Those little affirmations, those little words that you're saying can really seep into your brain and be like, okay, I am a reader, help you get back into it a lot faster. Kind of going off of that, one of my personal favorites is to just romanticize the reading process. I feel like this is easier than ever now that the whole like being a reader aesthetic is like trendy and we all kind of know what that reader girl vibe is. I feel like for me, the simplest way to do this is to just like light a candle when I'm gonna read or cozy up with a blanket, maybe warm up like a little snack. Just kind of make it into a whole experience and indulge in the process a little bit. All right, that is it for this video. I hope that you guys enjoyed it and maybe got a little valuable advice from it. If you are currently on a reading journey, let me know down in the comments. What type of books do you like? How long have you been getting back into reading for? Maybe which of these tips resonated the most or you're gonna try to implement. Would love that. If you're new to my channel, hi, my name is Brielle. I make all sorts of content around life in my 20s, productivity, personal development. We do lots of like chatty sit down videos like this too. So if any of that interests you, definitely be sure to subscribe and stick around for more videos. And if you like fantasy, pick this shit up. All right, I love you guys. Bye.